And so a lot of people ask me the questions because of like our lawsuit and stuff like that. We are, you know, one of the only approved products in states like Louisiana until that was just kind of overturned by the judge. In different states that have these PMTA registry laws. And I hate it. I think I don't want it, because if it's only my company or Enjoy or any other company that stays on that list, the industry doesn't survive, right? Like it's literally impossible for the industry to survive. So I think that we just need as many tobacco product authorizations to exist so we can continue to do what we've been doing. I've been doing this for 12 years now. So it's just with 23 quote unquote products, the industry will never survive. So.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So when you talk about the PMTA approvals, and I'm new to this space, I don't like green technologies, but it sounds like it's a full product, right? And it's very much based on these flavorings and like appeal to children, things like that. Is there a way to break this out into parts or components where they are pre-approved in a way, and then it's only a flavor or something else in its own kind of piece? That is the question mark? Or is it everything have to be a full product that goes under review?
Honestly, I'm not a scientist or a lawyer.
Yeah, no.
No.
I'm just
Willie?
curious.
No.
No. No, no's the answer.
Yeah, they ultimately make decisions on the entire, on the whole product, especially with the PMTA.
There were comments submitted during the rulemaking years ago proposing that those types of initiatives where FDA could use like a monograph approach, what they use in other centers, to allow for there to be a list of approved ingredients and different components, but they did not go down that path. Their position is that the TCA creates a product by product approval pathway.
They have teased at certain events the potential for a somewhat abbreviated PMTA process when you're talking about looking at evolution of your product. They've talked about noting and bridging and some other techniques that can come into that to abbreviate that process, the process for a product. One of the things to remember about that is that is a fundamental paradigm shift in how you look at your R&D and product development. What basically it essentially requires is that you have thought out the entire life cycle of your product to a certain extent about, you know, points where you're going to change it, and then you can keep things going into the hopper and stuff like that. And the best example of that, and I think is indicative of some of the frustration of a lot of folks in the industry, is that the best example of that is what PMI is doing for IQOS. There are constant PMTAs. A lot of the authorizations that have happened, especially on that device, have been for iterations of the device that are likely never to see the light of day. But they're just kind of building upon that to try to get as close to the global standard of IQOS in the current iteration that it is within the framework here. But as Dr. McKinney said, you know, they look at it as the entirety of the product. So even the abbreviation of it is far beyond a monograph approach or something that you would see at some other centers.
Thank you, guys.
So when we go into some initial reactions or follow-up, whatever we like.
Initial reaction, the bar moved again. If you were listening, cessation is the bar, which is basically drugs. That's the bar. No one has provided the science. I take it personally. Every consultant in here that has prepared PMTAs, I think they're good at what they do, should take it personally. Ex-FDA folks that helped us should take it personally, right? Okay? They're not providing us tools. They're providing us guidance and regulation. One tool they could provide is a template, a PMTA template, so that they get a consistent application, it can be reviewed quickly. The other thing is, they don't see that they're doing anything wrong. The courts support what we are doing. Did they read the unbox? Did they read that decision? Did he read it, right? The other thing is, he said the right thing, but I don't know that the scientists are getting the message. Because when I read information that goes to the clients, it's exactly opposite of what Dr. King has been saying. So that's what I got from it. A little bit disappointed, a little bit sad. Okay, I'll pass the mic now.
Not wrong, but.
Okay, well, couple of things. I'll start off on a more positive note. I do believe that just about everybody there at FDA, everybody there at FDA, and including Dr. King, does hold a belief that, as he said, switching to a lower risk product is a good thing. And I think that fundamentally the difference in approach that we have is in how we view risk. We being the industry side versus the agency side. And I keep coming back not only to the point of cessation that Dr. McKinney brought up that kind of screamed out at me, and then I use these wonderful Keller and Heckman pens to highlight. But also I want to talk about a little bit on the youth thing, because I think that that's something that is a continuing stumbling block, both in terms of the flavor issue that we have and in terms of a lot of the products that are going through, and also some of my concerns about what the future would look like. You know, he said when he was talking about the products and the strides that we've made in reducing uptake in terms of e-cigarettes, you know, I couldn't help but key in that we did have a comment about the most commonly used amongst kids for 10 years has been e-cigarettes, and we kept going back to that. And really the takeaway that I have on that, when he was talking about the public health standards, and he was doing the comparison to safe and effective versus APPH, thinking of Tony in his lunchtime speech there. Nice job, Tony. But I really was struck on the fact that he defined risk there as youth uptake. So, and I think that was another one that kind of stood out to me in the discussion that Dr. King gave to us, is really looking at the risk as the youth uptake, and that being the balance of the standard that you have to get over, especially for a flavored product, to cross the line on APPH. One of the things that was missing in that was a more comprehensive discussion on innovation, which, if you read section 1 of the Tobacco Control Act, there's kind of 2 prongs for the center to look at. And this is something that has kind of been feedback that I get from my members, both the very largest multinationals and also some of the smallest that I'm privileged to have involved with my association. And that really is in the area of innovation. That was, I mean, we talked a little bit about nicotine salts and things like that, but what really is missing, and what strikes me versus the rest of the world, is the lack of discussion of innovation on different product types. And there's a lot of areas where, if you go outside of the US and maybe a little bit of Canada, that you look at, that you see that innovation is really a key part of this. Everything from dealing with the environmental impacts of vapor products to creating products that are attractive to adult consumers, but able to be marketed in a much more responsible way, and are able to gain success both in dark markets, which, for those of you that don't operate outside of the US, most places that you go into, or a lot of countries that you go into, the products are, you know, completely closed behind a shelf, you can't see anything, but also in more open environments like duty-free and such. So that was kind of an interesting thing. And then I also want to come back to a point that he made about the 5-year plan on operational excellence. Dr. King noted something about the 21st Century Cures Act that is something that I've heard in conversations with other professionals at the center, and I think it's something that we, you know, if we're looking to gain traction and get a better MO between industry and the center, one of the things with the 21st Century Cures that I think a lot of people don't realize is that act increased the pay everywhere at FDA but the Center for Tobacco Products, and especially with regards to the Office of Science. It has created a massive amount of churn within the office. And so I know a lot of you are engaged in advocacy and lobbying My organization is prohibited by charter from that. We're just kind of like a manatee, just kind of floating around, you know, looking cute for everybody. My wife would disagree with that, but hopefully you won't. But the importance of that is that, you know, especially OS faces an incredible amount of churn. There's a lot of very dedicated professionals at CTP. There's a lot of dedicated professionals that have families and careers and that move on after a while, especially because of that imbalance that you have in the pay structure there. So if we're talking about trying to find a way so that the agency, so that we can find and reach a level of operational excellence that is more conducive to that, there's a lot of issues there. But one of them is we can't keep having the churn within these critical functions because folks can go and switch to a different center and make 20–30% more. That I think is something that really stuck out to me from Dr. King's, but I'll leave it to the other pros here, especially this one.
Yeah, why don't I just do these? Thank you for calling me a pro. Not everybody does that. Is this one on?
Yeah.
Okay. Is this one? Is this? Wait, this one? All right, you already heard me talk some. This is just to kind of give you some visual representation of some of the things that, can you hear me? Okay. I was talking about, and also some reactions, because he did say a few new things today, but we've heard this before. But this is our general reaction to kind of the overall approach that CTP is taking. Except it's not playing. Play.
500,000 Americans every year. E-cigarettes